talked a little bit too much, right? But we haven't talked about what it is agribusiness. Agribusiness is, when you see agribusiness, you think about agriculture, right? Yes, agricultural production, distribution, consumption, food. Long time ago, my understanding is very narrow, was very narrow. Okay, I only think food, or let's say food, agricultural products is the agribusiness, but no. Clothing, right? Cotton. Okay, it's also agriculture, right? Shelter. Why shelter? Think about the fiber, wood, plywood, residential building or commercial building. We use a lot of wood, not concrete, right? So we use very less concrete. Now I have adjusted my understanding as well. So I want you to have the broad concept of agribusiness. All the activities, economic activities in food and fiber system, cottons, right? Wood, whatever. It covers many things. And then not only, they are also supporting, business or supporting sectors. They are not direct, but they are indirectly, connect with agribusiness. And then you see, oh, that's the huge, right? So we have the big economic contribution. It's a time that let's make some, formal definition for agribusiness. Usually we call this like a core sector, agribusiness sectors. Okay, the imports, seeds, all the imports, right? The seeds, the fertilizer, right? Those things, financing, support, equipment, or whatever. In between, the intermediate activities, right? So there will be processing, transportation, packaging, distribution, like later on that will be, put into either in the restaurant or let's say into this grocery store. That will be the final consumption stage. Okay, throughout this, we call value chain later, but you can call this supply chain at this moment. This is like the core industry. I want you to understand this table, all right? So because we will have the homework, or we will have the assignment. Okay, I'm trying to send in the signal. We still need the exam. So some of the very important, or the key concepts, I will somehow remind you. The core industry, including this import, right? That will be the production and the intermediary, let's say that stages, all right? And then later on, there will be the value added, or let's say the post-production stages. So there will be like the processing, the food manufacturing, right? So this is the production, this is the value added. Import, production, and then the value added, those three categories. And then plus, those are supporting, not the core, but supporting. Using this so-called the value chain to understand this supply chain, value chain, this value chain, because we call this a value added, right? Value added throughout this chain. From the raw material, natural resource, land, water, right? And then we have the imports, right? Fertilizer, seeds, those stuff. And then we will go through this. We will see go through this each step, like a production. And then we have the products ready, storage, processing, right? All this will be inside into this processing, manufacturing, transportation will be into this intermediate activities. And then it goes to the grocery store, goes to the, let's say that the restaurant, right? Or the farmer's market, whatever. This is for the consumption stage. Usually we call this like a farm to fork, FF. Management is throughout this value chain, right? Okay, no matter this is the production or this is the consumption stage. So let's continue with the development of agribusiness. So let's do a little quick way, because actually we all understand that at the early time, like hunting, right, and then gathering culture, and then we started to shift to, we call this early shift to following this natural, and then we shifted to this or at least we call this, we try to control the nature. Yeah, I just try to leave it to yourself to read agricultural-based culture. So people will purchase or have their own land, right? So they acquire the equipment, and then they try to have the big family labor. science, technology, knowledge, try to increase the yield, increase the production, and then at the same time to develop some basic management leadership skill. But those early stages from, let's say, from very basic practice on very, let's say, simple ways. The most important thing that the productivity increased in the 18th century. So when I talk about the 18th century, you should remember that we're talking about the technological innovation. Actually, we are talking about the Industrial Revolution, the first Industrial Revolution, the second Industrial Revolution. With those technological developments, we have the railroad, telegram, right? So those are like for the agribusiness or from agriculture perspective, this is like we have the infrastructure, physical capital, right? We have the technology. And then at the same time that we are developing the human capital, but the human capital will be a later story. We will have, the idea start the business or the agriculture to the a local market. Here we talk about local market. Actually, it's expanded. Why? Transportation. We have the infrastructure. We have the transportation, and then we can move or transport the commodity or the products to other places to trade. The so-called the agribusiness started, and then probably you have heard about commodities, right? Futures market. And ask yourself. Actually, later on, I will introduce the CME. What stands for CME? Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Why Chicago, right? Transportations, by those rivers, lakes, and then Chicago is more like the middle of the I cannot say the central, right? The central agricultural states, right? The middle of those states. Further on, we have this, later on, we have specialized by having more innovations using those chemicals, right? So we have the fertilizer, pesticide, probably nowadays that we talk about the GM food, right? Genetically modified or genetically engineered, increase the production, increase the productivity as well. That's the development of, agribusiness. So not only the agriculture, but agribusiness. So remember this so-called the value chain. All the time, we focus on the agriculture, but later on, since we have the innovation, we have the technological innovation, we expanded the definition for agribusiness, including agriculture, but extended, with a much broader definition. Back to our topic, management. UF, we are one of the land-grant universities. We are not only receive those grants, those fundings for technology development, also for the human capitals, right? The managers, scientists. So all of those human, let's say we call this talents, further development of agribusiness. Because when we talk about agribusiness, I myself had long time question regarding what's the difference. Although that you can read the book and then find this 5 major difference, not that big difference, okay? So in my opinion, 2 things, okay? One is agribusiness, we are dealing with those products. It has the perishable nature, right? So it won't last a long time. My first job, right? In Metro, it's a grocery chain. I started as a butcher, okay? So, and then quickly I become like a department manager. And then at that time, the headache, how much you order every time, every day actually, and then how long you can sell it. For meat products, you cannot keep it in the refrigerator for long. So this become like how you can estimate the sales and then place the right amount, order the right amount. This become very challenging. There are other differences. According to the textbook, this agribusiness will start from this family operation. Family run and the family owned are different, all right? So one is more like the family is still, involved deeply into the operation. Family owned means they are the owner, they are the big shareholder, but running by the professional managers. Those are very different. When we talk about the organization, so I will share with you why. Think about that the who you are competing with, the family members or other professional managers. This is the difference. And then the second one that talk about, like initially, this connection with one location, with one commodities. Let's say Florida, we let's say produce citrus, right? We also produce other, let's say, vegetables, fruits, right? So why we don't produce corn, soybeans? This land is good for those fruits and vegetables, but Iowa, they produce a lot of those commodities. So this is the location and commodity. This is one very important message for us. So because we are more like focusing on, let's say, the agribusiness, we are more focusing on one product, one commodity production. So this is our strength. Probably the first time you see this so-called the fungible goods with little no qualitative difference. So when we talk about commodity, we talk about fungible characteristics. Think about the futures market, soybean, and then let's say corn, right? Wheat, crude oil, natural gas. So they have the quality standards. Trading futures market, that means they're fungible, exchangeable. They don't have the difference in quality. Risk management needs the so-called the risk mitigation, because the production will face the uncertainty, the risk. We already mentioned about the weather, about the natural disasters, right? So this is one of the risks, but also other risks. When we talk about futures market, this the idea like try to manage the risk by hedging. Most of the time when we talk about risk management or mitigate the risk, we are talking about the price, fluctuation price. So how to mitigate or how to manage the risk on the futures market, and then we can lock the price, or we call hedge, right? It's called hedging. We don't worry about the future price fluctuation as the seller or as the buyer. So we can lock the price, okay, now for future. Either there's a futures contract by, hedging by futures contract or hedging by options. Hedging is somehow the, let's say that come with those risk mitigation or risk management. Here that I have a short video, and then you will have a better understanding regarding what is the futures market, what is the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. If you go to the futures market, you will see there are many commodities belong to our agribusiness. So that's why we try to emphasize that. The next one, I don't like how they call this, agribusiness products are personal. I would say, hey guys, you see, our agribusiness products, they're the necessity for surviving or for living. Strictly speaking, we can live without cars. We cannot live without food. In my opinion, this is the big difference. The reason why I choose agribusiness as my career path. The last one is about this perishable nature. Clothes or fibers, they are lasting much longer. But honestly, they are still perishable, right? So as a quick summary, you can see that this 5 difference, this agribusiness, from other business initially, right? It starts from the family operation, and then this is the operation limited in a certain location, or let's say focus on a very specific commodities, right? We needed to manage the risk or mitigate the risk. We mentioned about the crisis, we mentioned about the opportunity. This is particularly true for agribusiness. So we needed to manage the risk. Also, this is very necessity products for surviving, for living. And then perishable makes our agribusiness more challenging. We need a management, we need a manager, we need the talents to make our agribusiness more competitive, more stronger, right?